Good afternoon. I'm delighted to welcome you all to our webinar on building corporate water resilience that we are implementing in collaboration with the Water Resilience Coalition. My name is Fabienne, and I'm a program manager with the UN Global Compact Network, Switzerland and Liechtenstein, the local chapter of the UN Global Compact Initiative. And the very mission of our initiative, for those of you who are not familiar with the UNGC, is to draw a company's attention to the relevance of ESG issues for their activities and to scale the global collective impact of businesses by integrating the UNGC's 10 principles into corporate strategies and practices and to contribute to progress of the Sustainable Development Goals. For this, our local chapter, as well as the global mission, we offer various learning formats, peer exchanges, as well as knowledge sharing opportunities to support companies in doing business responsibly. As we confront the pressing realities of climate change, the imperative of water security for businesses becomes ever more apparent. That's why with today's webinar, we will delve into this critical significance of water risk management and explore together with you actionable strategies towards building resilience in the face of these challenges. We'll look at collaborative water stewardship initiatives and demonstrate how collective efforts can drive an impactful change in safeguarding our water resources. And for this, I am very delighted to have a great lineup of speakers with me. First, in a second, we'll hear from our board member and CEO at the GWF, Florian Strasser, with a welcome remark, followed by our executive director, Antonio, who will introduce you to the UNGC Forward Foster initiative. Later on, we'll have the pleasure of learning about the steps companies should take to build a long-term water resilience and engage in collective action for water stewardship, presented by Andre Villaça-Ramalho, lead at the UNGC Water Resilience Coalition. And then last but certainly not least, we have a contribution from Renata Polini, head of nature at Holcim, on how water action looks like in practice. Before we begin, very shortly, let me draw your attention to our housekeeping rules. The webinar is being recorded, and both the slides and the recording will be made available to you afterward. Please feel free to activate your camera and rename yourselves if you wish to engage in the conversation. And please also ensure that you're muted during the webinar if you're not speaking. And you have both options to interact with us. You can either type any questions or comments you have in the chat, or raise your hand if you would like to make a direct intervention. Kindly note that we have organized the webinar in a way so that, that we will take the questions at the end of the session and answer them all at once. But if you have an urgent question, please feel free to raise your hand and we can address it. We can take it up directly. And now it's my pleasure to hand it over to Florian for the welcome remarks. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Fabienne. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Does that work?
Yes.
Excellent. So welcome everybody to what I think a very exciting webinar. I'm super excited to do a short welcome remark. My name is Florian Strasser. I'm CEO and chairman of GWF and also a board member at the Swiss and Liechtenstein network of the UN Global Compact. Water is something very dear to my heart. My company makes measurement devices for valuable resources. We will touch on a few of the projects that we are doing in this domain. And just as a quick reminder, a few statistics around water that probably all of us know. We as humans, we can survive 40 days without food, but only 3 days without water. And I think this is a very important reminder when we talk about corporate water resilience, to build always the bridge back to what this means to us as human beings. Quite a few of us know also that despite the fact we could live 40 days without food, it's very difficult to grow any type of food, vegetables, fruits without this essential resource. With the water of 70% that is currently used in agriculture, it's a very, very important statistics and also something to keep in mind. One apple alone requires 70 to 100 liters. Then quite a few of us also know that the water cycle is a complex animal, right? And one of the examples we like to use in our projects is the relationship between snow melting and climate change and fuel prices. And I think it's a very interesting logic to follow. Due to climate change, the peak flow from snow melt in the Swiss mountains shifts from July to May. So we are missing, or we actually see those heavy water inflows a lot earlier.
I'm sorry, Florian. There has been a glitch in the sound, it seems. Can you unmute yourself? Maybe try it again. It's still on mute. Yes, now. Can you hear us?
The work?
Yes. Sorry. Apologies for that.
Yeah, so this example, we can actually observe that the snow melting in the Swiss mountains is moving forward due to climate change. And this leads to lower water levels in the Rhine River in the dry months in the summer. This again then leads to the fact that the fuel transport from Rotterdam to Switzerland, where quite a lot of the fuel is transported from, has to be trucked instead of shipped. And this again leads to higher fuel prices for Swiss consumers. So it's very important to keep in mind that the water cycle in itself and this precious natural resource has many, many variables that are then becoming relevant for our day-to-day lives. So to summarize, there is in some areas not enough. There is in some areas too much. Water consumes a lot of energy. When we think about wastewater treatment plants, it is required to produce energy. So when you think about the energy source, one of the energy sources of the future, H2. H2 is a very interesting energy resource, but it requires a lot of water to produce. So for 1 kilogram of H2, you require 9 liters of water. And then, of course, water is very difficult to manage. Water is something, even in Switzerland, we do see a lot of leakages in utility systems. And it is also an integrated system that is polluted through either infrastructure that is undersized or, of course, through industrial and natural accidents. Now, I think what is also important to keep in mind is that water is becoming much more into the attention of the media. So you see here a few headlines from Germany over the past couple of years, where the media attention is really shifting towards water and is asking some very pressing questions: how to decide when water scarcity hits, who will be prioritized in receiving water. The answer, especially some of the large multinationals, in this example, breweries, are trying to give by looking far beyond their own water footprint. They are talking about net positive water impact. I'm sure that Andre will also highlight this. They talk about water resilient value chains, and they also talk about taking a leadership position in tackling the global water crisis. Also for smaller or medium-sized companies, the whole topic of sustainability becomes a lot more important. Many of those are currently still focusing on CO2 and optimizing their climate balance only, and only address water in descriptive reporting, in ISO reports or sustainability reports, because they either have very limited understanding of their own water footprint, and many of them, as we observe, also lack the capabilities to understand their dependency and the impact they have on their water basin. And I'm sure that we will be hearing about the water basin logic also during this webinar. So what do we do as a company? We support especially smaller and medium-sized companies in understanding their water footprint a lot better, understanding what flows into the processes, but also into the site, what flows out of the site. So we're creating a water balance for these types of companies. And we are also supporting them in understanding their macro perspective, so the river basin logic, and understand the water risks that they face, either today or then also in scenario plannings towards the future. So to summarize the quick intro perspective on water, I believe that water will become a much more relevant economic factor in the future. I also believe that the transparency that we as industry and leaders need to develop on our water footprint will become equally important as we currently also have to do it for CO2. I also believe that we will see a similar logic to CO2 with scope 1, 2, and 3 in water. What Andre will be touching upon, the water basin logic, will be absolutely essential. So we cannot think about water footprint from a corporate perspective alone. We really need to embed our footprint into the wider area of our environment. And if there is one takeaway that I would like you to have from this webinar is, don't try to do this alone. Right? There are already existing programs with UNGC, with the CU Water Mandate and the Water Resilience Coalition that are really set up to support you in all the efforts you would like to take on water and the sustainability topics about water. So this is it. Thank you very much. Very happy to engage in the discussion either during the Q&A session or also afterwards. Feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much, Florian, for setting the scene so nicely. Before we'll hand it over to Antonio, we briefly wanted to hear from you, the audience, on where you and your company are currently in your water resilience journey, starting out over to developing, implementing advanced or leading in terms of water resilience initiatives. You may join the poll by either scanning the QR code or via the website slido.com and entering the code. It would be really interesting to get an understanding of where the audience currently stands. I see the poll is working. That's great. We have the first people joining and answering. And see that I'll give you a couple of more seconds to join the survey and type in your answer. But we see that on average, a majority of the people in the group are either starting out in terms of building their strategies, and first of all, understanding the water risks and building their strategies. And while we have also a few that are already implementing or have quite robust measures and practices in place. Thank you very much for joining. And then with that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to Antonio.
Yeah, thank you very much. The poll is exactly what we want. We want you at the bottom line. You must all become leaders. That's the objective of today's webinar, to invite you to really become leaders. As you may have heard, we have launched, or our Secretary General, Antonio Gutierrez, the president of our board, the Global UN Global Compact, has launched this Moving Forward Fast campaign for 2030. So to accomplish and reach the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We know we are lagging behind. That's why we are inviting all companies to really invest as much as they can also to bring forward this agenda. And before I give you some indicators, just a short video which shows it quite nicely.
Häng eine weitere Null an dein
automobile is a fad, a novelty. Horses are here to stay.
I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers.
Women cannot do men's work.
Sustainability is important, but we have more urgent issues.
History has taught us that the leaders who succeed are the ones who meet the needs of the future by moving forward.
To achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, we need forward thinkers. Those who see the SDGs as a driver of growth, not reputation. Who are busy making progress, not just pledges. Who know sustainability is the future, not a trend.
Because right now, only 15% of the SDGs are on track for 2030. Some are even moving backwards. And the majority of businesses aren't setting bold enough targets.
Forward Faster is here to guide companies on the areas where they can make the biggest, fastest impact for 2030.
Because sustainable companies give us the best chance of achieving the SDGs. But we need you to take more ambitious action.
The people and planet of tomorrow are relying on the forward thinkers and doers of today. Don't fall behind the times. Move forward faster.
You think they're gonna do it?
Well, the invitation is let's do it. That's the idea of the whole initiative. And it's for these kids. It depends on our decisions, you know that. So what we invite you to do is really to be part of this global platform for ambitious, credible corporation action. And as you see on this slide, there are 2 parts: action. So do the business and do it good, as also Florian was mentioning before, and also add where you can as advocates within Switzerland and beyond to really bring forward these activities. That's really important. And we think also the business associations and corporations should be part of this positive work forward. We have defined 5 main topics. I don't go into the details here. You're invited to your companies to be part of one or more of these Forward Faster initiatives. What we are focusing on will be water resilience. Can you give me the next slide, Fabienne? We have put targets for all of the 5 initiatives. I don't read them. We focus on water resilience, but you're most welcome also to check the other ones and look whether your company could be part of another initiative in this Forward Faster context. Can you give me the next one? Building water resilience at your organization, at your company, can improve business and business performance and accelerate growth. We're really convinced that it makes sense that companies do that. And by reducing water consumption, we also will have more return on investment. So the idea is to reduce potential business risks caused by water challenges. And the other part could be enhance the reputation of your companies in the communities you operate in, and also with investors. That's also clear. And then profoundly impact your ability to fulfill the UN human rights to water and sanitation. That's another important part for us as UN Global Compact. It's also about human rights along the value chain, along especially your procurement. And then support ecosystems that capture, filter, and store water resources while supporting biodiversity and helping to reduce the impact of climate change. As you know, also biodiversity becomes more and more important in our debates and discussions. And here we see the connection to the Water Coalition. So the target we are setting for the the water coalition is really build water resilience across global operations and supply chains and join hands to achieve collective positive water impact in at least 100 vulnerable prioritized water basins by 2030. That's the objective and the target we want to achieve. And the question is, what can we as private sector actors here in Switzerland do and contribute to that? So what is in for your companies? And here I really would like to invite and motivate you, be early adopter. We invite you to be really first in the row and be early adopters. And we are looking, and we would like also a Swiss network to have as many companies joining us, and be also the first movers and use the advantage in the market which that can bring, and be part of this initiative which Fabienne will share in the chat. You will have the link where you can go directly on and get more details. I stop here and hand over to Fabienne again to start the more insightful context.
Thank you very much, Antonio, for this overview over the Forward Foster initiative. And I think what is so key to this initiative is, as Florian already put it so nicely, is it's not about reinventing the wheel and developing new coalitions and new initiative. It's really about bringing together what is already out there, and giving the business a context of where we see most that we need their action to move forward faster. So the target on water resilience is exactly what the CO Water Mandate and the Water Resilience Coalition have been working on for years. And we want to bring their work to the forefront and invite you all to collaborate with them. And with that, I'll stop the screen sharing, and I'm very happy to hand it over to Andre for your contribution. Thank you very much for being with us here today.
Hi, everyone. Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to be here representing the team. Can you just do a quick check? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay,
thanks.
great. So thanks, Florian and Antonio, for the introduction. It will save me some time about putting some context to it. So I'll just jump right in, making some connections for you in terms of what I'm going to present, which is the Water Resilience Coalition and where it fits into the landscape. So basically, the target that Antonio was presenting for Forward Fosters, it came out of our work in terms of trying to organize these companies to act together, thinking beyond their boundaries into the basin context. And why that is, I mean, the UN Global Compact has been pushing ESG in the agenda for a long time and helping companies boost their strategies. And after a while, we understand about like 15 years ago that we need a water group to help coordinate the water stewardship programs, which by then was kind of almost non-existing with a few exception of companies. There was no structured programs, no specific targets, and a way of looking into water. And this is where CO Water Mandate was created for. So after 15 years, we consider that the CO Water Mandate succeeded in the mission of showing water to the companies, setting water to their strategies, up to the point where some of the leading companies started understanding that what we're doing with our own efforts in terms of efficiency, or even our bilateral programs looking beyond our fences, like restoring freshwater ecosystems and all, we're not being enough to kind of change the game. So the water scenario was getting worse and worse, and the scale that is needed to actually help move this condition won't be achieved by individual actions. So we need the collective, and we need more action and someone to help bring us together. And this is where the Water Resilience Coalition was formed. So it's an action platform, which its main goal is to put companies together in those different 100 locations that Antonio was mentioning, and I can show you, and make it people work together, because the work together allow us to gain the scale that is needed to change the game. And this is the group that we have today. As you see, it's company for all over the world, all types of sectors, because this is the non-competitive agenda, right? I mean, is everyone together for the same mission? And also, we need a bunch of partners, because basically we're talking 100 different places in the world, and we need people that can actually, create the game plans, help us with local knowledge, and also bring programs that we can just join and help scale. So this is our group today, and this is the invitation for you to join ForFaster and join this group and help us move along. And one of the things that we identify is that, beyond doing your individual effort, which is kind of like a homework for everyone, right? We all need to be more efficient. We use less water. It makes us less vulnerable, saves money, and also contribute to the rivers. But more than that, we need collective targets, because even if you do well your own exercise of saving water, if others don't do it, if the basin is vulnerable, you're going to still be without water in the end. And of course, you're going to lose money, your efficiency, your production, and also potential conflicts of interest, right? As Florian was mentioned, how lack of water increases inflation because it changed the prices of food, it changed the prices of fuel. And also, depending on how serious the crisis is, it's also put us in a direct potential conflict with society. Because society also needs water to survive, and like and the government will have to make a decision. Am I keeping the water for the companies and I'm cutting the water for the people, or doing the other way around? So in any case, it's not a good set of consequences. So what we're trying to do is avoiding this. And to do that, we decided to create collective targets, like what we can do together. And when we mention we, I mean, we're talking about expanding the company's efforts, but by expanding the company efforts, and I'll show you an example, we can also bring governments, development banks, and others to kind of help scale the investments that are needed in the area. Because what the companies can do is that they can move faster, they can be pioneers, they can help put programs in place that will then allow others to come. So basically, what we decided to do is like the positive water impact in 100 stress basins, which becomes the main pillar of the ForFaster for water. Also provide water access and sanitation in a resilient manner, which basically means that we'll whatever solutions we put in place will be able to sustain itself considering climate change for 300 million people. And we also have a target of trying to, bring the most influential companies on water use, because we did this exercise and only 150 members of the UN Global Compact can influence 1/3 of the global water footprint, which means we do have the potential to change the game. And of course, and by 2050, we want to scale to more basins using the cases and examples that we developed in this initial set. So this is our target, our initiative target. And to do that, of course, we need to create a roadmap. And this roadmap basically means scaling proven solutions and technologies. The fact is that we don't need to kind of create a lot of things. I mean, a lot of the technology, a lot of the solutions exists already. It's just a matter of scaling, and sharing them. So one thing that works in a place can be adapted to work in another country or in another basin. And also there's a lot of efforts that have been done by a lot of companies together, like throughout the years. I know Florian was mentioned the food and beverage company. They have good programs everywhere in the world already. So how can we pick this program instead of starting from the ground? We can just use the starting they can give us and just expand this. So multiplying our impact by bringing the unique expertise of our members. This is also like a lot of our companies develop technologies, monitoring systems, and all for water, something that we can use to expand our capacity to identify the situation, create basin-specific targets, and also monitor the change, because this is important, right? It's not just doing nice, it's making sure that whatever we're doing is actually tracking well against the problem. So if the problem is, for example, a 20% shortfall between water supply and demand, where are we with our solutions? We're contributing to 1%, 2%, 10%. So we need to be able to track the outcomes of these major programs to understand if we're succeeding or not. In the same way that we need to create additional ways of that companies can support. And this is where I will talk a little bit about the WC investment portfolio, which is a different way. Instead of you're putting your environment budget or ESG budget or some of your foundation money into these programs, we can create other ways for people to invest, which is basically transforming some of these programs in a type of program that can provide some returns for companies. So basically, you invest in the program for your balance sheet, like you invest in any type of stock exchange or other types of investments, and after a while, you get your money back, some interest, but you generate a lot of benefits in between, like more people with access to water and sanitation, or an expanded freshwater ecosystem that being able to provide to sustain water in a more stable manner through time. And finally, the last point is the importance of being able to measure and understand this with data, right? I mean, we want to make people excited. We want to create targets that are feasible, understandable. And this is all because I'm going to summarize this, but we do have like this game plan leading us to 2050, where the main portion here is the purple one, the collective action, where we're trying to achieve positive impact in 100 basins. And to do that, we need to create time-bound targets. We need to map projects in each of these places, like what's people already doing in that area? Do we need to create new programs? Do we need to expand existing ones? What is the real situation? It's a water quantity problem. It's a water quality problem. It's all of these problems together. As you said, if as Florian was saying, if the mountains were melting earlier, and then we have more droughts during the dry season, how can we account for this? How can we help provide more stability to the river so we suffer less with this type of problem? So this is the type of thing that we need to understand to design solutions that will respond to that, and not just any positive solutions. I mean, there's a lot of programs out there, but we need to make sure that the ones that we are defining are the ones that we're actually solving the problem. And I'll talk a little bit about the net positive water impact, this is basically the commitment. I talk about the collective commitment of positive impact in 100 basins, reaching 300 million people with access and sanitation. But this is the part where the company doing their part, right? Being more efficient, investing outside the fences, and even into collective action. And it's great that we have Wholesome and coming after me, because they've been testing out this methodology for us. So Renata will be able to connect some of these dots too. Moving on, just to show you a picture, this is the 100 basins. We work together with WWF, TNC, Alliance for Water Stewardship, and a lot of these very active NGOs and organizations on the waterfront. And we use a lot of different factors to kind of calculate which ones would be this priority basins. And this is not because we're saying like, well, this is only these 100 and forget about the others. This is just a matter of capacity. Unfortunately, we cannot tackle all the basins in the world. So we decided to do an exercise of where are the places that we can focus initially, and then build structures that can be replicated to the other basins. And basically, to get to this assessment, we use, for example, value of crop production, companies' assets, number of industries, and of course, the risk scenarios, the climate change scenarios, the water quality and water scenarios, and that basically lead to this map. This is where we'll be focusing our actions, and this is the 100 basins that the forecast referred to. We can paste the link in the chat after that will lead you to a website where you can actually click on each of these basins, get some information from all of them. Over here is just a kind of a standing picture, but we can share a link where you can find more information. And basically, at each of these places, what we're trying to do is this exercise. What is the current condition? I mean, is that a potential shortfall in supply demand, or how many million people lack water access and sanitation, or how much further we are in terms of pollution that we need to decrease in order to make the river viable? So understand this so we can create a specific goal. So what is our goal? Reduce X amount of phosphorus in the water so the water becomes less polluted and more available. Create a roadmap of intervention. Okay, so for me to reduce this pollution load, what is the type of things? So I need to be more efficient on the using of agrochemicals. I need to better protect the freshwater ecosystem so they can protect the river a little bit more. So this, and what type of actions we need, so we can implement the projects and then measure the progress. So this is kind of like the approach we're using. There's a little bit more steps, but I didn't want to overcomplicate this. Because basically, I know this looks like a complex graphic, but I'm just trying to focus on the main colors in here. This came out of climate change, and we're using basically the same idea. The business as usual scenario, as you can see in red and yellow, if we don't do this, if we don't tackle the basins issues, basically we're coming out of a very stressful situation that will implicate business, of course. And what we want is going to the blue bar, right? Which is like the bar where the water is sustainable for all its uses. But in order to get from the red to the blue, we need a series of interventions. So what basically we're needing, like each of these interventions can be government programs, but it can also be our collective action. So it's every effort that will take us to move from this red bar to the blue bar. And this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to map these interventions so we can kind of start moving the bar from red to blue. And this is an example of how we do that in terms of targets. This is a California target, and this is why it's acre feet and not cubic meter or something more traditional to most people. But basically it summarizes the understanding that there is a gap. Okay, there is a 20% gap in supply demand when you look in 2040, and how much water this represents. And let's say like, oh, it represents 3 million cubic meters of water per, I don't know what they're measuring here. I think it's well, per year. So so there is a gap, and this gap was identified, right? So it's the full graphic in here. You can see light blue plus dark blue. And there's a portion of this that the companies can help close. So one portion of this is, of course, it's government infrastructure, is as the utilities. But a portion of this can be closed by the private sector acting together. And this is how we created this 1.1 million acre feet target. Understand the total, understand what is the business contributions, and this is our focus. Create programs to close this 1.1 million acre feet per year. So makes the message pretty clear, and see, for example, CEOs can get it, everyone can get it. And how we do that? We do that by looking at the basin and understand what type of interventions do we need. So we need to improve, reduce irrigation water consumption. We need to fix the leakages of the pipes from utilities. We need to reuse facilities. We need to restore freshwater ecosystem. So the aggregation of these different solutions will deliver the impact that we want. And this is what we are trying to do at the WRC, is kind of working with different organizations to map those potential solutions and present them to the companies, so the companies can start their engagement program and help, of course, move the solution. And basically, this is an example of the initial areas that we tackle. So, and some examples of programs. So we have Charco Medito in Mexico, for example. It's a freshwater ecosystem and wash program for a community close in the Guadalajara region. There is a water reuse facility that have about 20 clients together that supports this water reuse facility. So it's a collective reuse facility. There's freshwater ecosystem in Nairobi, in Kenya. So there's a bunch of programs, and the intention of these programs is basically saving water. So an example from Brazil, this started only with a small number of companies, and now it's basically for every dollar that a company puts in, we get $7 coming out from public money. So this is what I was saying, that we can start from the companies, but then create something that is interesting, that will allow the public sector and others to come, and then boosting the outcomes of this. And as I know that I'm being a bit late, I'm just gonna give some quick examples. This is the investment portfolio. This is where I mentioned that we have several opportunities for private investments, which basically means investing, get your money back. There's investments to do that for water wash initiatives, for infrastructure, for nature-based solutions. And you can see numbers in here. We already closed this one, a wash fund for $150 million that will provide water for up to 5 million people in different regions of Asia. So there's a lot of opportunities in here. And lastly, as the last point, just to talk about the net positive water impact, this is what the companies can sign to do themselves, which is basically your contribution. And it's divided in those simplified and set of information. Basically, you have 3 types of actions. One is to avoid and reduce your operational impact, so use less water, use alternative sources of water, like reuse, for example. Then you have the replenishment, restore your operational footprint. Of course, you cannot use zero water, so whatever remains, you try to compensate by investing in freshwater restorations, reuse facilities, and other types. And basically, in the end, you also want to collaborate to this larger watershed outcomes. And as you can see, in the shading in the side, the impact grows as you move from individual to collective. And this is a lot of information, but we are happy to address any questions or provide any extra insights. But with that, sorry, I'm 2 minutes before my time, Fabian, and I return this to you now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andre, for this great insights. I saw some comments on the chat that they're not seeing the slides, or like just the last parts of the slides. We will make sure that you, I think it was just the one slide on the, yes, exactly.
So this is one of the microfinancing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there are some more great examples in there, and also this net positive water impact example that you were talking about last. So we'll make sure that you will receive these slides, and also in a calmer minute can review them, of course. So thank you very much, Andre. With that, I would directly hand it over to Renata for her input on water action and practice and how they're doing it at Holcim. Renata, over to you.
Thank you, Fabiani. Hi, hello everyone. Can you hear me well? Okay, good. Before I start with the deep dive on what we do on water, just for those who do not know Holcim, we are a material construction company. We produce cement, concrete, aggregates, roofing, facades, so many elements that is going to be used, or that are being used in construction, in buildings, but also in infrastructure. And then many people, ask me, what do you do on water? Why you are like taking care of water? And the reality is that our business, it's very dependent on fresh water. So to produce concrete, cement, aggregates, and even the roofing, but less, more the cement and aggregates in the concrete business, we use a lot of water. And ideally, it should not be fresh water, but today it's fresh, and that's why we have a strategy to reduce this usage. And then this is the first point. The second point is that when we check where we are operating, so basically our locations, 28% of our sites are located in water risk areas. This is huge. It's really a lot of sites that we need to take care of, because again, we are dependent on this resource. And I'm going to explain to you how is our strategy, but also just to put into the context, we all know, and I think Florian was mentioned this, that the climate change is intensifying the water stress and flooding events. But for me, this report that was launched last year is the one in the right side of the slide here. It's saying that it's not far away. This problem is by 2030, the water demand will outstrip the water supply. So the problem is it's going to happen pretty soon. So we need to act fast to try to minimize this challenge that we are going to face pretty soon. And then if you go to the next slide. So basically in 2021, so before the Science-Based Target for Nature was launched, of course the SBTi for climate was already there, but we basically decided to develop a strategy for Holcim, the nature strategy. And in this strategy, there are mainly two elements we are tackling. One is the water, and the other one is biodiversity. But today the focus is the water, and basically we do have three main categories of targets. The first one is about reducing our freshwater withdrawal. That's the first rectangular there. And then for that one, we do have measurable commitments in our main material business lines, which is cement, aggregates, and ready-mix concrete. And then we do have these measurable targets that by 2030, we want to reduce by 33% our freshwater withdrawal, our specific freshwater withdrawal in cement, 20% in aggregates, and 15% in ready-mix when we compare to our 2018 baseline. So to the topic that, a lot of people, a lot of companies, and they do not know the water footprint, how to measure it. Holcim, we are pretty robust on this specific matter. And that's why we are also able to put a measurable targets, because we know where we are today, or where we were in 2018. And that's why we could put measurable targets going forward. We also have this target that we want to have 100% of sites equipped with water recycling system in water risk areas. So that's basically to reduce our impact, so to reduce our freshwater withdrawal, and indirectly, will also reduce our dependence on water. Another category of project we have, or target, is on the water pollution. So the idea here is that we want to have 100% of the water we are discharging with good qualities, according to the local regulations. But when this is not in place, because we know in some countries it's not really robust, the water quality laws. So we developed Holcim a water standard. So basically there are some quality parameters that we need to measure before discharging, and all the sites, they need to comply with these parameters and this standard. So that the second one, the target is by 2026. And the third one is the most innovative one for our sector, because as we also heard today, there are some sectors, for example, the beverage industry, they are very advanced on this. So they do have like replenishment targets or basin location targets. So we also decided in 2021 that we need to have a target for our industry and our company. Overall, and basically this is on the freshwater replenishment. And the idea is that by 2030, we want to have 75% of our sites that are located in water risk area to be water positive. This means that we are trying to reduce our water withdrawal, but in the cases that we cannot reduce to zero, we should give back this water to community and to nature. And in the next slide, I'm going to explain to you how we are doing that. Thank you. So here is like where we are focused on in terms of water stewardship. So there is a part of our own operations, and then basically these are the levers. So basically these three main points are the levers that we are using to reduce our freshwater withdrawal. The first one is by improving our water facilities, so the water use efficiency. So basically, for example, by adding equipping the sites with a water recycling system, but also by fixing leakages and so on. So being more efficient on the way that we are using water. So that's one lever to achieve the reduction we are planning. The second lever is the idea is to shift the freshwater usage to non-freshwater usage. How do we do that? We, for example, can use water coming from the sea. We desalinate this water and we use in our sites, but also groundwater that has high salinity, we also have to desalinate and we use in our sites. Or also some projects that we are having, it's also to use non-freshwater, is to use treated wastewater. So we partner with the communities, but sometimes with some industries, and we treat this water and then we use into our site. So we don't need to extract fresh water from the groundwater or from rivers and lakes, and to use in our facilities. And the third lever is about using rainwater harvested. So that's also a lever to reduce freshwater usage. And then we do have a minimal requirement for our sites that we need to provide water and sanitation, hygiene for all the employees and contractors. That for us is minimal requirement, and we signed the WASH pledge some years ago. But that's like the levers for reducing in our own operations the freshwater withdrawal. And as I said, we have this target on freshwater replenishment, and that's beyond our sites. So as I said, the idea is that if we cannot reduce to zero our freshwater withdrawal, we need to give back this volume that we are using in our facilities. And then basically today, three categories of projects that we are working on to give back this water. The first one is about watershed protection and restoration. The second one is for water for productive use. And the third one is the water access and sanitation facilities. All these three categories of projects we do select according to the local needs. So there are some operations that are more in need to have water access and sanitation facilities, so we work on that. Some others are more on the watershed protection and restoration, so we work on that specific project and so on. And this specific part is the one that the methodology that we are using is the one that Andre was discussing, the net positive impact methodology. We aligned, in fact, our methodology with the water resilience methodology, water resilience coalition methodology. So if you go to the next slide. So basically, this is just some examples. So I see that we don't have many more time. So basically, just to give maybe one example, the middle one is one in Ecuador. So that's a quite interesting one. You can see in the photo is a beer cup. So we are partnering with a beverage industry. So it's a beer company. And the idea here is that we are then getting their wastewater, we are treating it, and we are using our sites, because seriously, it makes no sense that we have to use fresh water for a concrete, to produce cement, concrete, and aggregates. And we need to move away of this dependency. And that's one way of what we are doing. And that's a very efficient way. So that's in Ecuador. We managed to reduce, by the time being 23% in the freshwater usage, and also some costs. We also managed to reduce by 43%, which always helps the business case for implementing this type of projects. So we don't have a lot of time, so I cannot go to the other ones, but maybe go to the next slides just to comment in one project that we are doing outside the boundary for the freshwater replenishment. Is the second one on Kujaw plant, which is located in Poland. So we partnered with the State Forest of National Forest Holding, which is one of the main European associations that are working in protecting forest. And the idea is that we are capturing the water in our quarry, and we are and we are then working on restoring some wetlands in the nearby area. So always on the freshwater replenishment projects, we are also, there is the rule number 1 is that we need to replenish this project in the same water basin that we are withdrawing. So we cannot say, okay, we are withdrawing in Mexico and we are replenishing in Poland. No, it has to be in the same basin, not even in the same country, but in the same basin. So that's one type of project we are implementing. In Poland is just an example. And then if you go to the next slide, I promise it's my last slide, so we can have maybe one question today. Yeah, so basically after the launch of our strategy, we achieved many great, partnerships and many, we achieved, no, we set many partnership, but many also, we were selected to very interesting projects to be conducted. For example, on the science-based target for nature, we are the only company in our sector that is piloting the methodology, which is a new methodology that's helping companies to set science-based targets for nature. And that's very specific for water and land. And we are piloting it. We managed to also to set a partnership with IUCN, a 3-year partnership, and they are also helping us on that water replenishment part of the strategy. We are also a part of the TNFD, Task Force on Nature-related financial disclosures, and we are an early adopter, committing to be transparent on disclosing our progress on this specific challenge. And we are part of the CO Water Mandate, the Water Resilience Coalition. We signed the pledge also for the Watch for Work. And again, we are really committing on transparently disclosing our targets, but also the progress on our targets. So if you have time, you can go and check, our annual reports or the CDP, which is also public available. And you can see like how we are progressing towards our 2030 targets on water. So that's it. I had to rush. I'm sorry for that. But I hope you guys could have a brief overview in what HOCIM is doing in the topic of water.
Thank you so much, Renata. I could have listened to many more examples. I find it very interesting when you share about the work and the collective action. We will share the slides so you can reread the bullet points at least. I know that we're almost at time, so if you have to leave a bit earlier, I would thank you very much for joining us. But for the last couple of minutes, I would try to take up the 2 questions that we have seen. And I would like to begin with the last one, which is, I guess, probably for Renata, which was about water mispricing, and maybe Andre can add on. And to what extent do you see that corporations which are correcting for that water mispricing, and how this serves as a critical enabler, which is underpinning corporate water stewardship? Thought it might be for Renata, but happy if anyone of whoever wants to address the question.
So Fabian, can you quickly summarize? Sorry,
the water mispricing. So if you as a company act upon this water mispricing, how does this serve as a critical enabler underpinning corporate water stewardship?
Do they mean, I'm not sure what the mispricing means. Do they mean that we're not internalizing the costs? Or?
Kind of, because it's undervalued, underpriced. So in that direction.
Yeah. Yes. So the way that I tackle this internally, it's about our dependence on water, that we are dependent on this resource, and we can see, in particular with climate change, that this resource may not be available in the short future. So the idea is to try to work in terms of minimizing the risks, because today, if we don't have this resource and we don't have all the solutions of using no fresh water or all the types of solutions, then we may have a problem in our production. We cannot produce our products, we cannot sell, we can be bankrupt. So basically, that's the leverage that I use internally to push this topic further and as a high priority for the business. Andre, maybe you want to comment.
Yeah, I mean, this is a from the point or on the what utilities charge and all these things, there's a lot of discussions. There's some assessments that say like water should be 5 times the cost that it is today, but there's some discussion on the feasibility of this, right? I mean, because if you increase 5 times, how can the people pay for it, and especially in development countries, and how can you sustain the economy? So I think that the solution to stimulate more companies to move into action is more connected to what Renato is saying. It's like internalizing the cost by assessing how much water is important to your business, how much vulnerability we are. And I was working on a petrochemical company before joining this, and we did exactly this exercise of assuming that we have 30% less water during a period of time in the upcoming years, how much this actually costs to the company. So we talked to the engineers from the plant and said like, well, if we run out of water, 30% less water for 2 months in the upcoming 5 years, how much does it cost? And they said like, well, we need to shut down the operation. It's going to cost 200 million. And then you compare this to the cost of finding alternative solutions like water reuse or desalination or whatever is more feasible for that area. And we need to understand that the cost was kind of 10% of the potential losses. So with that, you can calculate and in the end, the company invested in a massive water reuse facility and replaced all its fresh water use, paying a little bit more in comparison to the lowest cost, but protecting themselves in turn. And after that, São Paulo have a major drought. Then most companies shut down their businesses or lost a lot of money in production and productivity, and they continue operating 100% because they were using, they're treating sewage to induce water. So I think this types of things are more stimulating than just increasing the costs, because increasing the costs do not necessarily will bring more technology, especially because some leading companies, and probably Holcim is among those, but all of these beverage companies, they're already operating at peak efficiency. So there's not much to do in terms of lowering the amount of water being used. So increasing the cost will not bring the solutions we want. So it's more basically like how we calculate this, how much risk this represents to the business, and then transform this into a strategy for investing.
Thank you very much. I see that we have one more question, but we also see that we're over time. So my suggestion would be that on the question, which is about actions to take if you're in a water-stressed basin, specifically by a glacier, my suggestion would be, Andre, that we follow up with you, and then we'll give the answer in the follow-up email to everyone in the room, just to not use more time. And with that, I would like to thank once more all the participants that joined our webinar, but of course also special thanks to Florian, Antonio, Andre, and Renata for their inputs. Thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you at another occasion. Thank you. Have a good afternoon for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.